Dear friends, English literature, romantic poetry, selected poems of John Keats, Ode to a Nightingale, short questions with answers. Short questions 8 to 17. Question 8. Describe Ode to a Nightingale as a lyric. Answer. Keats' Ode to a Nightingale has the following qualities of a lyric. Number 1. The poet expresses Keats' personal moods and feelings. Being fascinated by the song of the nightingale, he desires to go to the ideal world of the bird. He goes to the imaginary world by his imagination but has to come back to the world of reality. Number 2, it is a short poem. It consists of 8 stanzas, each of which has 10 lines. Number 3, it is not a narrative poem. The poet here does not narrate any story. The subject of the poem is not a particular nightingale but a type of the race imagined as singing in some far off scene of woodland mystery and beauty. Number 4, the setting of the poem has also some affinity with music. There is a note of melancholy to the total setting of the poem too. Number 5, like a lyric, the process of observation, thought, memory, and feeling have been organized in the poem. Number 6, the structure of the poem is well knit. First, it states about the initial emotion, then it presents thoughts suggested by the emotion, and finally, it concludes with an intellectual reaction to the emotional disturbance. Question 9. How does Keats describe his aching condition at the beginning of Ode to a Nightingale? Answer. Keats was inspired to write the poem Ode to a Nightingale by a song of a nightingale that had built its nest close to the house of his friend Charles Brown in Hampstead. At the beginning of the poem, he describes his aching condition resulted from hearing the song of the bird. His heart aches. His heart begins to ache. The song of the nightingale creates in him a sleepy feeling of dullness, which benumbs his senses. He is overtaken by a kind of drowsiness as he had drunk a dose of hemlock or some opium only a minute ago. The feeling of dullness appears to him so acutely that it seems to him that he has drunk the water of Lethe, an underground water running through Hades, the home of the dead. Lethe is called the river of forgetfulness because the water of the river, when drunk, was thought to make the dead forget their life on earth. Similarly, Keats is forgetting everything because of spiritual ecstasy in the Song of the Nightingale. Thus, Keats describes his aching condition, which is similar to the feeling caused by hemlock or opium, or the water of the river of forgetfulness. Question 10. What is brought about his aching condition? Answer. The aching condition of the poet arises not out of suffering but of intense joy that he finds in the nightingale song. The nightingale sings in some green grass plot full of beech trees. The plot is made melodious by the song of the bird. Hearing the song of the nightingale, the poet feels the excess of joy. It is singing with full-throated ease of the song of the summer. The poet remembers that the song of the nightingale was heard by emperor and clown in ancient times, and it had penetrated the sad heart of Ruth or gladdened the ears of a princess imprisoned in a desolate castle. Keats does not envy the happy lot of the bird, but he is too happy in her happiness. He calls it a light-winged dryad. Being fascinated by the song of the bird, he wishes to reach the melodious plot where the fairy nightingale is singing. Thus, the melodious song of the nightingale has brought the poet's aching condition. Question 11. Why does Keats want to escape from the real world? Answer. The world in which Keats lives is full of sorrow and suffering. The pain of the practical world pricks him. The world is to him a slippery and dark pavement that hinders him every step. The song of the nightingale reminds him of the unhappy state of affairs in that world. Here, men suffer from ennui, nerve-wracking anxieties that chiffon off the cream of man's life. Here, the only business in man's life is to sit listlessly and entertain one another with deep sigh and sales of personal anguish. Here, there are a few men live up to old age, and those who live up to that age suffer from paralysis, melancholy, and gray hair. Here, young men soon lose their healthy glue and luster and look thin and lean as ghosts. Here, the brightness of the eye of a beautiful woman cannot last long. Here, love dies out long before it reaches its satiety. In addition, the mournful memory of the death of Tom Fanny Brown's desertion, harsh criticism of the critics, and his own disease, tuberculosis, motivate kids to escape to an ideal world from the world of hard reality. Question 12. How does he try to escape? Answer. Kids wants to escape to the world of the nightingale by drinking a mouthful of wine cooled in a deep cellar for a long time and made in a place where the people sang and danced in open air to celebrate the festival of Flora, the goddess of flowers. He also wants to drink a cupful of red wine made in the warm south and as aspiring as a clear water of Hippocrene, a fountain sacred to the muses on the Mount Helicon in Poesia. But he soon discards the idea, for he has no intention of being carried in the chariot of Bacchus, god of wine, drawn by leopards. He does not want to seek inspiration by drinking wine. He rejects the idea of forgetting his sorrows by drinking wine. He wants to avoid his sorrow and suffering with the help of his poetic inspiration. He will go to the world of the imagination, world of the nightingale, not with the help of wine, but on invisible wings of poetry. Poetry helps him to pass away from the real world to the ideal world. Question 13. Why is kids seized with the idea of death? Answer. The world in which kids live is a hard world, a world of sorrow and suffering, of disease and distress. He is dissatisfied with the world of reality. The weariness, the fever, and the freight of the world of the reality make him feel unhappy. The real world becomes a place of misery for him. Here men suffer from ennui, boredom, nerve-wracking anxieties that siphon off the cream of man's life. Here the only business in man's life is to sit listlessly and entertain one another with deep sighs and tales of personal anguish. Here there are a few men live up to old age, and those who live up to that age suffer from paralysis, melancholy, and gray hair. Here young men soon lose their healthy glow and luster and look thin and lean as ghosts. Here the brightness of the eye of a beautiful woman cannot last long. New love dies out long before it reaches its satiety. In addition, the mournful memory of the death of his brother Tom, desertion of his beloved Fanny Brown, his own disease, tuberculosis, fills his life with sorrows and sufferings. Thus, the sorrow and sufferings of his life makes him wish for death. Question 14. Why does it now more than ever seem rich for him to die? Answer. Keats is almost senseless to enjoy the sweet and melodious song of the nightingale. Actually, the song represents the forgetfulness of the stern realities of life. It makes him oblivious of the anxieties, sorrows, and bitterness of the world. He feels happy when he goes to the nightingale's world in his imagination. In the darkness of the forest, he observes that the forest is overloaded with sweet fragrance, and he listens to the song of the nightingale. The song of the nightingale transports him into an exalted mood of supreme bliss, and he thinks that it is the richest moment for him to die with the song ringing in his ears. Death in the present moment will be a luxury for him. In many a time he feels how beautiful death is, and he addresses death in highly poetic words. But right at the moment, the song of the bard has made death more beautiful and more welcoming. If he dies now, in the sweet midnight, he will no more hear the song with his sensual ears, but the bird will be singing even when he would no longer hear it. The song The Nightingale might then be called a beautiful dirge to celebrate his death, and the poet would be insensible to it as a clod of earth. Question 15. Write a short note on Nightingale. Answer. Philomel, or Philomela, daughter of Paetion, king of Athens, was raped by her brother-in-law, Teras. Teras had cut her tongue and imprisoned her so that she could not tell the story of his misdeed to her sister Procne. When the two sisters killed his son, he tried to kill them both, but the god turned her into a nightingale. Kids once heard the song of a nightingale that had built its nest close to the house of his friend Charles Brown in Hampstead. The song inspired him to write Ode to a Nightingale. His heart begins to ache because of the very excess of joy which he felt hearing the song of the nightingale. The song of the bird creates in him a sleepy feeling of fullness which benumbs his senses. Being torn up with sorrow and suffering of the practical world, Keats wants to escape to the ideal world of the nightingale by drinking wine. But he rejects the idea and goes to the nightingale's world in his imagination. In the darkness of the forest, he observes that the forest is overloaded with sweet fragrance, and he listens to the song of the nightingale. The song of the nightingale transports him into an exalted mood of supreme bliss, and he thinks that it is the richest moment for him to die with the song ringing in his ears. Thus, the nightingale is an ideal bird, the song of which is a means of avoiding the stern realities of life. Question 16. Write short note on ode. Answer. An ode is a rhymed lyric dignified in style, often in the form of an address. Originally, it was intended to be sung. It deals with sad theme, but ends with consolation. It has complex or irregular metrical form. Edmund Gosse defines the ode as a strain of enthusiastic and exalted lyric bursts directed to a fixed purpose and dealing progressively with one dignified theme. The essentials of an ode are: number one, it is often addressed to a person or abstraction. Number two, it has lyric enthusiasm and emotional intensity. Number three, its theme is dignified and exalted. Number four, its style is elevated. Number five, its development of thought is logical and clear. Number six, its metrical pattern may be regular or irregular, but it is always elaborate and often complex and intricate. Number 17, write short note on negative capability. Answer. Negative capability means the capability of negating oneself. The expression used by Keats indicates the ability of the poet to keep himself aloof from his writings. Keats defines negative capability thus: one who has negative capability is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. It is also known as objectivity or impersonality. Keats certainly had this objectivity or impersonality, though he was writing in the age of subjectivity. In Ode to a Nightingale, Keats' idea of negative capability is seen to a considerable extent. Though he faces the tragic dilemma of life, he is able to share the joy of the nightingale. Forgetting the stern realities of life, he enjoys the joy of an ideal world in his imagination. Likewise, in Ode on a Grecian urn, Keats is able to take joy in the unheard melodies. The Grecian urn is a symbol of purity, and its message teaches the poet out of thought until he can only contemplate and absorb the eternal values it symbolizes, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. Thank you, friends, for watching.